I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard Knock Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard Knock Life, comics, movies, and TV.
Hey, we're podcasting again. What's up, Dominic?
Hey, what's up? It's Dominic, and you're Keith. Hi.
I am Keith. It's the
Hard-
it's the Nerds of Color.
What's this place called again? Hard Knock Life.
The Hard Knock
yeah.
Life for us.
Yeah.
You were not enjoying the Hard Knock Life. You were enjoying Pearl Jam 1 week ago.
I did get to see Pearl Jam.
I want to get the report from Sacramento.
Oh, great. Yeah, so we can be a music review podcast for a moment. I love that.
I do appreciate you tagging me on social media.
Oh, yeah. And actually, I was going to post more videos this week, for the fans who couldn't be there. And I have a few more snippets that might be good.
And, Eddie Vedder's in the news for basically talking shit about Harrison Butker, the Kansas City Chiefs caveman kicker.
Oh, wow.
Not at your show. He did this in Vegas, but
Because he's a sports fan, so he follows that shit,
yeah.
right?
And he's also a feminist and a progressive, and he
Yeah.
did not appreciate Harrison Butker's backwards view on femininity and masculinity.
Oh, yeah. I only halfway heard about that because it sounded stupid, but Butker went off about, what, gays or gender roles?
Right. Women should just be at home and support their man. And, we kind of touched on this a little bit last week, but the funny thing too is that when I think Variety wrote about, Eddie's between song banter where he was talking about it and the usual suspects came in to say Pearl Jam should just shut up and why do they got to bring politics into it? And it's we talked about last week, of all the bands, politics is ingrained into everything that they do. So it's not
Right. And if we can make another weird parallel, okay, for one thing, Buttkiss is one of
Butker. Buttkiss. Dick Butkus, his name shall not be tarnished.
Sorry. We'll not tarnish the great Chicago Bear Butkus. Buttkurser Kisser is on the Chiefs, right? So I am naturally inclined to oppose him in every way anyway.
Right.
Because F that guy.
Well, this shows also the hypocrisy of conservatives, because if you recall in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs were the bad guy team because of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
Right.
But now all of a sudden they are the team that conservatives put on a pedestal because of this guy.
And I was about to go there because we remember around the Super Bowl there was all that team switching politically based on Taylor Swift was in this team or blah blah blah. And Republicans like the Niners now, even though they don't really, and all that shit.
Did they forget about Colin Kaepernick?
Right. So quickly these idiots forget. And they get this parallels again because we were talking about how in a lot of circles Pearl Jam is a bro band, but also they're also the progressive hippie band in a different way, right? So there's a lot of overlap there. So this is one of those weirdly staged fights where it's why don't you just shut up and play even flow again.
Yeah, which is a song about houseless and homelessness.
Right. And so you can choose to selectively remember whether you love Pearl Jam, the band that plays loud bro rock, or whether you remember they actually they advocate for every progressive cause consistently. I mean, Pearl Jam is consistent on this point, and I guess I'm just saying, okay, so whatever, conservatives like the Chiefs again because of that idiot, and Pearl Jam is speaking, as they always do, consistently on behalf of progressive and the things that we think would make the world a bit better place. I mean, those of us who know. Anyway,
all that said, how was the show in not Vegas, in Sacramento?
Yeah, Sacramento. Yeah. No, it was awesome, and it was that came up in a couple of ways. What was I going to say? They did not play Daughter and Something Special, unfortunately, because I don't know, they just weren't feeling it that particular night. But you were talking about how you enjoyed that as a dad, and he just wasn't doing that particular night. But he's been doing it on other sets. So we didn't get into and I like the song Daughter, and I like both those songs, so I missed that.
And
good
they have
set.
like 300 songs in their catalog, and they always have to change up the set list every night. So that's
Yeah.
another reason certain songs don't get played.
Yeah. They did a nice run through of elderly woman behind the small counter in a small town. It was really like it was an excellent vibe.
You
Corduroy
got the Tom
was
Waits cover
really
at
good.
your show, right?
Yes. So it got really interesting in the extended encore section. It started off with a Tom Waits song, which is a really nice treat. It's this song from Mule Variations. I wasn't really familiar with it, but it's one of those Tom Waits like lovely ballads.
Picture in a Frame.
Yeah, it's called Picture in a Frame. And he dedicated it to like two friends of his who are like having some kind of Valentine love romance thing. I don't even know who the friends were. He told stories. He did tell long ass stories. I'll say that. Eddie Vedder was like having long podcast-esque
Rambling.
monologues between everything. And it was fine because I was reminded, you know, his voice has had so many imitators in music over the years, but
Mhm.
with the benefit of time, his voice is really special and unique. It's like God talking. I mean, he's just he's just huge and resonant, so it's kind of nice to listen to him talk about all these things. Anyway, Tom Waits song. The rest of the encore was basically the greatest hits from the
Yeah.
10, the first record. There was Alive and Jeremy and Black, of course, and
Yeah.
we were all just like feeling it at that point. I did want to say a few things about like the experience of concert going these days, which is a little bit whack. Like, for one thing, because the tickets are so expensive these days, like when you go there, people do feel this weird sense of entitlement.
Mhm.
Like back when it was like only $70, only-ish, see a big rock show, like you kind of could be like, oh, you can play whatever they want. Lately, when I notice, because the tickets are freaking $300, people go and they're like, well, you better play this song because
Play
I
the
need to get
hits.
exactly what this exorbitant amount that I paid for. So there's this weird like atmosphere of feeling entitled, which is justified because you did pay way too much.
Right, right.
So I was in my own head going, yeah, I really wish you'd played Daughter because I did spend like several $100s on this.
And I think like for the folks in Sacramento in particular, like they had not played Sacramento in I think like 20
Yeah.
years. I think this was their first time back in a long time too.
Yeah, he made a point of saying that at the opening of the set. He said something like, "Yeah, we've only said this like 3 times in our whole band career. Good evening, Sacramento." And that was a very nice moment. But all the same, yes, the crowd and I mean the crowd that was directly around me, the dudes who were sitting next to me and my friend Jessica were very much like, "Yeah, you better play oldie soon," because in truth, a lot of their songs in their catalog do tend to sound the same if they're from the middle period. I knew
Okay,
about.
says you, but whatever.
I'm sure you knew all of them. Did you analyze the set list in detail?
I was just actually checking out the set list,
There are a
and
bunch in the middle that I only sort of half knew.
well, I was looking at your so like they post the set list every
Yeah,
show, and I mean you got a hell of a show. So it starts with Pendulum, which is from their one of their mid career albums, Lightning Bolt.
yeah.
But you got I'm Open, Small Town, which is a versus song, Faithful from No Code.
See, I didn't even recognize that song, but okay,
Yeah,
great.
and then and then they do that like they've been following the same pattern on this tour, and then you get like the Dark Matter section.
Yeah,
And it's like 4 songs in a row from Dark Matter.
yeah,
And then you get Garden, which is a 10 classic
totally.
that they don't play often too. And I mean, as a Pearl Jam fan, one of the reasons so many people like follow them across the country is to get like that experience of a different set list every night.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
totally. And we really appreciate that. It's not like rigidly choreographed. It's
Right.
like loose, like musicians can play songs just because they're feeling it. So that was definitely a nice feeling.
But yeah, you're right. The encore is a straight up like greatest hits package.
Yeah, it was basically like 10 over again.
Jeremy Black, Do the Evolution from Yield, A Live Porch, and then the closing
Yeah.
song for every show has been Setting Sun, which is the last song on Dark Matter.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how Dark Matter's reception goes over as the tour winds on.
Right, because like they're playing pretty much the entire album, and that's rare that
Yeah.
a band plays like only the new songs. They usually do kind of cycle in some more classics, but
Yeah, they're definitely finding a balance with it, and definitely the guys I was sitting next to now just were kind of complaining about it, because we paid fucking $300. We don't need we want all the hits anyway.
yeah.
I already said that,
And they're
but
not playing as long as I mean another thing that I think, again, following some of the discourse on like Pearl Jam message boards and Reddits and stuff,
mhm.
is that they're also not playing as long a show as they used to play. They used to
Oh,
go on for like they used to be like Bruce Springsteen, like play for like 2.5 to almost 3 hours.
oh, is that right? Yeah.
Like their set list used to be at least 30 songs.
Oh,
They would
geez.
do like 2 encores and stuff.
Oh, geez.
And like this tour so far has been consistently like 24, 25 songs, which is still a shit ton of songs, for any
Yeah.
concert. Because it's still probably well over 2 hours, I'm assuming.
Oh, it felt like a significantly long show. Yes.
Yeah. But they used to do even longer shows.
Yeah.
And I think some people are mad because, as you said, the price for this particular tour, and I think all concerts, it's not even just a Pearl
Oh,
Jam thing.
yeah, all concerts.
All concerts are like just crazy expensive now. People are like, well, you're only playing like, 75% of the songs that you used to play.
Right.
And like, 8 of them are from a record that just came out a week ago.
I'm paying 300% of the ticket price I used to pay when I remembered liking you back in the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that weird inverse. I don't know what that graph looks like, but it's not making people happy.
Yeah. No, I get it. But at least, I mean, I definitely had FOMO. I'm hoping that tickets for their show in Baltimore open up, and
Yeah.
I'd be happy to pay a couple $100. I don't want to pay a couple thousand, which is what I
Right.
saw for their tickets, but
Maybe the universe will provide somehow. We'll work on that. It's definitely it's going to be like a long world tour, right? And they're just in the ramping up process of
right.
it.
I mean, they literally just kicked it off. Like, I think Sacramento was only their third city,
Yeah.
fourth show, and they just finished up Vegas. I'm not even sure where they go next. So yeah, it's going to be some time before they even get to the East Coast. So
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure my experience, if I am lucky enough to have it, will be vastly different from the one you had.
Yeah, and that's a good thing.
Eddie doesn't take his hat off now anymore. I'm curious, like,
The hat is just on his head. Yes.
what's going on there?
The hat is part of his whole
It's
character,
his
it
thing now.
seems.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
On the new record, I think like Wreckage will end up being like a good crowd pleasing big venue kind of song. And I hope they make something special and Daughter like part of the regular set because I would have
Yeah.
liked to hear them go through that. But yeah, but no complaints, good stuff.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
it's awesome.
except for those 5, 6 songs that I don't really know the names of that you do. So good for you.
Well, again, you're not too versed, no pun intended, on the post versus albums.
Yes,
But
post verses.
Vitology is not
I'm
that
not.
obscure to you, right? Like, the corduroy.
I had Vitology. I had a copy of it on CD.
Yeah.
And then
It's the post Vitology that you're not
yeah.
greatly familiar with.
Let's also remember the exact time period of this. This is around the time when you stopped having to buy music. Do we remember that?
I mean, and also the other thing is Vitology literally
Napster.
came out 30 years ago,
Right.
94.
But
I mean, Vitology was pre-Napster. No Code, I think.
okay.
No Code came out in 96, so I guess
Okay.
that's closer to Napster.
Okay.
Yield came out in 98, which is like the
Wow,
heart of.
you really know all of them. But good on you. This is the show about
Binaural,
fandom.
2000.
Binaural.
Riot Act, 2002.
Wow. You're like that person who can name all of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movies in
I'm
order.
the Rain Man of Pearl Jam albums.
Excellent. Strong recommend if you're into that kind of thing,
Cool.
which you are.
Well, to go from Pearl Jam, and if we've lost any listeners, we're going to lose a few more listeners, because the one thing I wanted to talk about before we get to the other topic
Oh gosh.
is this weekend I have not been following a lot of nerd stuff. As we've already established, X-Men 97 is apparently the biggest thing ever, and I've only watched like one episode of it.
I watched the ending, but go on.
But the big superhero battle that I wanted to talk about at the beginning of the podcast here, I don't know if you paid any attention to it. It was this mega cross-universe matchup between DC and Marvel, where Ant-Man took down the Joker in Game 7 of the NBA playoffs, the Western Conference semifinals.
Nicely done. I didn't know where that joke was going, but you got me. Ant-Man beat the Joker by
Yeah.
flying up his butt and exploding him from the inside. No, that was a hell of a game.
That was a hell of a series. And I
Hell
think
of
I
a
am in love with
series.
Anthony Edwards.
He's so good. He seems like a wholesome dude,
He's my
for one
favorite
thing.
player right now.
Yeah. He has that Michael Jordan-ish thing.
I mean, he's Michael Jordan's illegitimate kid.
If I can poke that bear. He's Michael Jordan's illegitimate son. Is that
I'm
what he
pretty
said?
sure.
Well, that would explain a lot of things.
Where was MJ 22 years ago? I'm sure if you look at his hotel bill, he was in somewhere in Atlanta 22 years ago.
That would explain a whole lot of things. Whoa, Keith. But it would explain things. That Minnesota is like an interesting team. I think they're pretty deep. For a while, I was rooting for a Minnesota-New York finals, but I guess that's not going to happen. Now,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be Minnesota and the Celtics, right?
Yeah, it's going to be the Kevin Garnett finals. I was so happy. To all my Knicks friends, I was so happy to see you guys go home. Game 7.
Fuck.
It was such a talking about Pearl Jam, it was such a throwback to the 90s for me to see the New York Knicks get eliminated from the playoffs and Michael Jordan's son triumphant in Game 7 of the playoffs. It was almost like it was 1997 all over again.
Sidebar: we know he's not actually Michael Jordan's son. Keith is just saying that.
Do we
Okay,
know that?
never. Okay, fine. Also, that part is not important to me as far as the lore of it. Anthony Edwards is great on his own terms.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Wherever he comes from.
I love that. Like, he was asked though, like, what do you think about being called the next Michael Jordan? He's like, I don't like that because Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. So already plus in your column. And I don't want to be the next Michael Jordan. I want to be the first Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, totally.
But like the first Anthony Edwards was on ER. So like
that's true. Yeah. He's no he's
goose. Not even that guy.
Bringing it back to the nerd part, how does he feel about being Ant-Man? He's not the first Ant-Man. Is that a self-assigned nickname or did someone give it to him?
No, I think NBA nicknames nowadays are just not that creative. Because like, or at least they're not aware of like the superheroes that they're named after. Because like, for example, Nikola Jokic is only called the Joker because like his last name shares like 4 of the 5 letters.
Yes, it's not a great nickname for him.
Like, there's no other like reason that he's not like chaotic and he's not like a clown prince of basketball. He's a goofy, like tall guy who's very skilled.
Yeah.
But got no resemblance to the Joker whatsoever.
If we were going off personality, like Matt Barnes should be the Joker or Rudy Gobert type. But I do like the analogy for the framing of it. Yes, Game 7, Ant-Man faced the Joker. Yeah. And on the Joker's home court of Denver.
Yeah, no, I mean the defending champions too. Like, that was no one gave them a shot, particularly after Denver came back after going down 2-0.
Yeah.
And everyone thought after Game 4, okay, Denver figured them out. And what I love about the Timberwolves, honestly, and you mentioned Rudy Gobert, and I don't like Rudy Gobert. I don't like
he's
Karl Anthony Towns. I actually don't like anyone on the Timberwolves except Anthony Edwards. So it's I'm a little conflicted, but like, I do like the fact that they play defense.
Totally.
And that's something you don't see out of a superstar nowadays, right? Like someone like Anthony Edwards revels in playing defense. And he's also a throwback to the 90s because, in another interview, he was asked, like, what if you could change one thing about the league today, what would you change? And he'd say, I would stop all this load management bullshit. Like, if you're not hurt, you should play. And I'm like, I love this guy. Why can't he play for the Bulls?
You had your time, Bulls.
I guess.
I don't want
I mean, his dad did. Why can't he?
Minnesota's never had their time. It might be Minnesota's year. That's the crazy thing.
No, I think a Minnesota Boston finals would be cool, and Kevin Garnett will just have to like claim whoever wins.
was that because there was a Minnesota Boston finals back when?
No. He originated his career with the Timberwolves.
Right, I know that.
Then he went to Boston and won a title in Boston.
Right.
So if Minnesota played Boston, who would he root for?
I see.
So that's the KG final.
I think that's interesting because the Celtics, well, they are heavily favored. I think they're like the most boring bunch of NBA superstars I've ever seen. They have no personality.
Not
Kevin Garnett, whatever you think of him, he had tons of personality.
Yeah,
that he
still
brought to
does. He's got a
that
great
Celtics.
podcast.
Yeah, he's still has personality to spare, and he brought that to that Celtics team, and you could get excited about it. Ooh, Kobe, Garnett, just
Yeah.
fucking screaming at each other.
Yeah.
The Celtics are incredibly good at winning basketball games, and they're kind of just like Jason Tatum. Like, what do
Yeah.
you do? Like, what's
Yeah.
your thing?
Yeah. Boston, Indiana. I'm not. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have. I'm actually like the NBA playoffs. I hadn't been paying any attention to, and it's this Minnesota series that got me invested. And then I got invested in Indiana beating New York because I
Yeah,
thought
let's
that
get
was.
back to that. Why? Because you hate New York
Yeah,
Knicks?
I'm a Bulls fan. I don't. I
I
can't.
see.
I do
I
not
see.
like the Knicks. My like today, the day we're recording is the 30th anniversary of Scottie Pippen dunking on Patrick Ewing in the 1994 playoffs and
Oh,
making him
yes. A
making
fan.
Patrick Ewing his son for at least one play. And yeah, the worst part about Linsanity, I will say this
Yes.
as a happy Asian American Heritage Month.
Yes.
The one thing I hated about Linsanity more than anything else is that it made me have to root for New York Knicks games.
A conflict. Well, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
There's your no, Knicks fans are really annoying, but I was rooting for them because to be sentimental, I think the playoff series between Reggie Miller's Pacers and I guess it was Spree Will and Houston's Knicks back in 1990 something, eight or
Yeah, the
nine.
choking
Yeah, was one of the series that first got me into basketball. Not even with, even my Warriors involved, just because it was a really compelling series. So the Indiana New York thing was a
yeah.
throwback that reminded me of that. It was again a great series. But yeah, as Charles Barkley said, they're both either of them are going to get creamed by Boston, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, but and I have tons of friends who are like hardcore Boston sports fans, and the
Yeah.
way they get hardcore about the sports, and great, but yeah, rooting for Minnesota to beat
Yeah.
Boston in the finals.
Celtics fans are the second most annoying
After
basketball fans.
Bulls fans, or what would be the
No,
first?
no, Bulls fans are the best. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Look at what we've endured over the last 30 years, 25
Winning,
years, I guess.
having the best player and winning 7 championships or
Well,
whatever it
no,
is.
20 that was 25 years ago.
Yeah, but you
Last
still talk
25
about
has
it
been
all the time.
the last
You're
25.
still claiming weird bloodline parentage between that era and
Like Game
this.
of Thrones over here.
Right, as if that's even possible and could restore you to
The
former glory.
bastard heir of Jordan's legacy.
Please go on, though. I want to make you. I want to hear your arguments, Bosch. Bulls fans are not annoying.
Well, I mean, I can't make that
The
because I'm sure you ask a Knicks fan who if the but the and I say that too because the Bulls have not been relevant in
not
25.
two,
Like
not
there's
two.
a brief respite in the middle when Derrick Rose first came on the scene, and then Tom Thibodeau, the current coach of the Knicks, ran Derrick Rose into the ground, and I
Uh,
think Knicks fans are realizing like Tom Thibodeau just kind of that's his thing. He's
well,
just
you were
gonna
just
play.
speaking of load limits, though. Wouldn't that make the case for?
Well, the thing with Derrick Rose is that it was in the first round of the playoffs. We were winning by 12 points with like 2 minutes left in the game. There's no reason to have him in the game still, and that's when he blew out his knee. So
Yeah. All right. Well.
yeah, no, I
Okay.
mean I talk out both sides of
Okay.
my mouth when I'm like load
Yeah.
management's bullshit, but
Okay. Okay. Just checking. Just checking.
I never said I wasn't a hypocrite.
All right. So, but yeah, Ant-Man beat the Joker. How about that?
Ant-Man beat the. So you go back to like dumb nicknames though. So like Anthony Edwards, as great as he is, his game has no resemblance to either Hank Pym or Scott Lang, but it's just
Hmm.
his name is Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
So like the media says he's Ant-Man.
Yeah. But I mean, it's lazy, but I'll take it because he is kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
he's an underdog. He's
yeah. True.
his name is so boring it doesn't even stick with you. So like
Yeah.
we didn't
It's either
we
him or
did,
the ER guy.
right. We didn't I love the AR guy too. He was also an underdog. And he was, we knew he was good, but this series of playoffs was a kind of a coming out of like, oh my gosh, he might be like champion level good, right?
Right.
And now, so we're experiencing that moment. Because remember, there were a lot of other things in play, like there are other superstars that aren't in the playoffs. One of the weird things about this year is like LeBron isn't in it, Anthony Davis isn't in it, Steph Curry isn't in it. So there are a lot of
Giannis wasn't in it. Yeah.
yeah. So there are a lot of people who are anointed as like alpha top tier NBA players who aren't even in it. So all these people who are sort of up and coming superstars are kind of, asserting their place in the narrative, right?
And to your point about Minnesota, like they have been the giant slayers because they took out Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns in the
Yeah,
first round,
excellent example. Yeah,
which everyone assumed would be like they were the super team, right? Kevin
yeah,
Durant, Bradley
yeah,
Beal, Devin Booker,
yeah.
all kind of like assembled in Phoenix and flamed out. They
It's
got swept, I think, right?
yeah, that failed completely. Ant-Man annihilated those guys.
And then now they took out the defending champions at home. They beat them in Denver.
Yeah.
Oh.
After beating them twice at home at the beginning of the series, and we thought it would be like
Yeah,
a quick one, and then
yeah. It
just
was
a
a
great,
riveting.
great series.
But and then, so last thing I wanted to talk about before we move on to actual nerd stuff is that one thing I'm actually saddened about, like watching the Minnesota series, all the games have been on TNT,
Yeah.
and it looks like the writing is on the wall. Turner is going to lose the NBA to NBC, and
Is that right? I didn't know about
that's what
this.
I mean. All signs point that NBC is making a bid to get back in the NBA game,
Huh.
and it looks like Turner's going to be the odd man out, and that saddens me because I love Turner's like broadcast team, particularly the inside the NBA guys with Ernie
Sure.
Hudson, or not Ernie Hudson, Ernie Johnson,
Ernie
Shaquille O'Neal,
Johnson.
Kenny Smith, and Charles Barkley. But also Turner's been doing basketball for like 40 years, and they just kind of know how to do it.
Wow.
I miss, but nostalgia speaking, we're talking about the 90s. I do miss the NBA on NBC. So in my ideal world,
Uh, okay.
NBC would just take over ABC because I hate the ABC ESPN like
Yeah.
production of basketball games. I hate their color commentary people. I hate their play-by-play people. I
Uh-huh.
hate their studio show. I hate
Yeah.
everything about ABC and ESPN's like take on the NBA.
Right.
So I would rather like if NBC took over for ABC, and we would just go back to how it was in the '90s, where it was like on TNT and NBC, and that's
I
my
see.
soapbox moment.
That's an
Because I'm
interesting
sad to lose like
soapbox.
Barkley and Shaquille and Kenny Smith.
We grew up with them.
Yeah,
Yes, you're clearly right. They're the best team to they make basketball fun. They get people who aren't into it. And
yeah.
but I'm just surprised. This is the first time hearing it. They're not, they can't hang it up. They're gonna migrate that show to somewhere. No?
Well, Ernie Hudson. Why do I keep calling him Ernie Hudson? I got Ghostbusters on the brain.
You always have Ghostbusters on
That's
the
true.
brain.
That's true. Ernie Johnson has said he's not leaving Turner if it does go to NBC. So we're already going to lose him, and he's a very important cog in the machine.
Yeah.
He's the straight man to all the chaos around him.
Yes.
So like that's one thing. And Barkley has said he didn't really want to come back to TNT, but they threw a whole bunch of money at him, and he was like, "Okay, I'll sign one last contract." But if they go to NBC, he said he's not going to go. Now, if NBC throws him like a gazillion dollars, I'm sure he's not
Yeah.
going to be like, "Nah, I'm not coming."
Yeah.
So like, there's that. But at the end of the day, even if you bring them all back minus Ernie Johnson on NBC, I don't think it's going to be the
Interesting.
same
That
thing.
would be quite a shift, and I didn't know that was in the cards. Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Also sports ball. So we'll
Yeah,
live.
so here's the reason. This is the transition I was planning. So like, why am I talking about Pearl Jam and basketball on what is ostensibly a nerd podcast? And one thing like it came to a realization is that we're heading into Memorial Day weekend, and in years past, we would be knee deep in talking about all the summer blockbusters.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is that so far this summer blockbuster season, I have given zero shits about the movies playing at the Cineplex.
Yeah.
Right? Like this weekend's number one movie was If, which is like a John Krasinski, Ryan Reynolds family movie.
Yeah.
Last
Which
week
looks good, by the way.
looks fine, but
looks like a good movie.
I'm don't care. Last
Yeah.
week was Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and again, looked fine. I have no investment
Yeah.
in that movie. The week before was The Fall Guy, which is like, who is that movie for? Like,
Yeah.
people who
Exactly.
remember that show are not going to movie theaters anymore, and it's a weird IP to be like,
Yeah, ding ding ding. I'm one of the guys who remembers watching that show on TV.
yeah, same
and
here.
I'm not gonna go see the movie.
No. Of course not.
Yeah.
Heather Thomas is not in the movie, so why would I
Yeah,
go see
yeah, exactly. Thank you for cutting to the chase.
it? The only
Um,
reason anyone our age watched The Fall Guy was for Heather Thomas.
yeah,
So like
basically for the credits, right? Yeah.
so I
It had
guess
a
the
good theme
point I'm
song too.
making
Anyway,
is that
yes.
it doesn't feel like we're knee deep in the middle of the summer blockbuster season.
No, it's very interesting you raised. I mean, let's not have a short memory about it. Let's remember there was a huge strike just last year,
Sure, right.
and
No, that's true.
shit is still in flux because of that. Um, the writers and the actors. And, it's worth saying because like we're not completely beholden to just whatever movie studios, whatever time it says they say it is. You know, there was a work conflict and probably things that got planned to be the huge movie this summer got moved around.
Mhm.
So we're
Right, right,
left,
yeah.
and yes, but the result is, you're right, we're left with I think the next Godzilla versus Kong movie and Deadpool versus Wolverine, or
Right.
whatever the movies are with those characters in the title. And they might as well be one movie at this point. It would be great to see Deadpool, Wolverine, Kong, and Godzilla in one movie. We'll get there one day.
Well, I mean, I guess like Furiosa seems interesting. I
Yes.
like Mad Max. I mean, not Mad Max, Fury Road. I like that one. I'm
Yeah.
kind of interested in Furiosa, but again, it just Furiosa does not feel like, to your point, that it's the big deal movie that's going to hold us over until we get to Deadpool. You know what I mean? Because Deadpool doesn't
Yeah.
come out to the end of July.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, there's not a big movie on this Memorial Day weekend. It's a little curious. I mean, in some ways, some people are happy about that. Probably like it's a perspective thing. I mean, in one argument, it would be good if other smaller indie movies or like people, international movies or things that aren't just like the big Hollywood fare would come out and thrive. But I'm not sure there's that movie either.
Well, that's interesting, Doug, because I think the big movie for you this weekend was a very small independent movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. So speaking of that, I went to see a very indie movie last weekend. It was very touching to me in many personal ways. It was called East Bay, and I live in the East Bay, and I'm from the East Bay. We're talking about the East Bay of San Francisco Bay Area, which generally encompasses Oakland, Berkeley, Albany, El Cerrito, Richmond, stuff like that.
Nothing to do with this old sneaker catalog back in the day, right? Do you remember
I
that?
I do
Did you
not
guys get
know.
that? Was
I
that was that not actually a thing in the East Bay, and that was only in the rest of the country?
I was never a sneaker person, so I might have just missed that
Oh, okay.
entirely.
No, because there was a catalog. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, please sound off in the comments. But it was called East Bay, and it was a catalog of like sneakers and like starter sets. And
I mean,
anyway,
that
please,
sounds very East Bay, but I don't know. I just
please
say that
continue.
because I'm sure there's another East Bay in the world. Like if you're from the Bay Area, East Bay is a thing, but I don't know if writ large in the world people recognize it as that. I'm always talking about the San Francisco Bay Area, of which there is the East Bay. If you
Right.
know, you
No,
know.
yes, yes. Please
And the
continue.
and the point is, this movie is about an Asian American guy. It's about Asian Americans and about middle-aged artistic failure, and it was about the East Bay in California. So I had to see it because it was basically about me. I take all those things very, very close to heart, and it's super indie, and it's really funny. It's a very funny movie satirizing, lots of indie film tropes and Asian American stuff. I think you'd enjoy it more than you say. Like, it doesn't take itself as seriously as, say, Beef, although I
Mhm.
like Beef, but it's really funny. It was also a Facebook win because I stumbled upon the movie poster like a couple weeks ago and saw it was having a limited release, and it's like, gee, it's not playing in the actual East Bay area. Shouldn't the movie called East Bay like premiere have a showing in the East Bay? Because it's definitely only going to be in theaters for like a month at best.
Right.
This is their shot. You got to be in an East Bay theater. So I posted on Facebook, and then and my friend Cheshire, who is not the DC villain but is actually named Cheshire, knew somebody, and he got to be screening at the New Parkway, which is actually in Oakland. So through a little social media machinations, we actually got this indie movie called East Bay to actually have a screening in the East Bay. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just trying to say this is what indie arts scratching each other's back community should be about. This is what we got to do if indie arts is to mean anything, is to network and try to have things that you wouldn't ordinarily be more seeable by people.
Constant Wu's in this movie, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the other funny thing about the movie. And I don't know how much people know about indie movie filmmaking, like, how it goes. But yeah, this movie was shot probably around 2014 or something. You can tell by the cell phones of the technology they're using at the time. And its original working title was low budget ethnic movie. And I should mention that the director, writer, and main actor's name is Daniel Yoon. He's a Korean guy, Korean Canadian, I believe, although he lived in the East Bay at some time. There's a lot of Canadian stuff and hockey stuff if you're into that kind of thing. It's kind of like a mix of like Strange Brew, if you remember that movie, and like an Indian Asian American movie. Anyway, it was clearly shot 10-ish years ago, and Constance Wu is in it, and I bet it's like her first movie, like one of her first
Was
features. I
Fresh
bet
Off
she
the
was
Boat out in 14 yet?
help me with the dates, because when did Crazy Rich Asians and Fresh Off the Boat come out?
Well, Crazy Rich Asians was 2018 maybe. No, 2018. Crazy Rich came out in 2018.
And I was trying to remember when Fresh Off Boat comes out, which is weird because you're remembering a nostalgia set in the 80s show and trying to remember what year it actually existed.
2015 is when Fresh Off the Boat came out.
So Constance Wu is not famous yet. She's probably a struggling actor trying to come up. No one knows who she is. So it's interesting. So probably what happened is this very indie movie was shot and was on this guy's shelf forever. And through some benefit of Constance Wu becoming famous in the last 10 years, he managed to finish it and get it to have some kind of release, with an indie distribution label, and that's great. And it's just it's just fun. Constance Wu is still delightful. She's like younger, so it's just a little weird time capsule thing watching the whole thing. But it's super funny, and if you're into Asian American stuff and art stuff, you definitely ought to experience it.
Yeah. No, I think I saw it was screening where I am too, which when I saw it in the the listings, I thought about you because I remembered your mini campaign to get it screened in the East Bay. So
Yeah, it was a mini campaign.
and I'm sure it'll be streaming somewhere, as all things are.
It will be eventually, but I think you still need to have some kind of theatrical to qualify for certain whatever awards and to be taken seriously, like as a movie by IMDb.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm sure it's become a sort of perfunctory thing, to the point of what movies are in theaters right now. But I was saying something like Beef was sort of the progression of a more interesting version of the Asian American story that Better Luck Tomorrow was trying to do, and successfully did in many ways. It opened up the kind of stories that Asian Americans could be in.
Which is ironic that season 2 will have like no Asians in it.
Right, because they actually don't like that, Hollywood. They still don't like that. Let's be clear. They still don't want us to have any story except Kung Fu Master or recent immigrant struggles.
Yeah.
That's the ones that they like. They're comfortable with those. Anything else is whoa.
Are they comfortable with indie pop bands doing songs about superheroes?
No, but who cares? We have to, get this
What's
started.
the 12 Valentine's update this week?
We have a really good song coming out this week, except our computers keep breaking. So
Oh, no.
freaking, if so, again,
And this is why people should donate to the Patreon so you can get
they should
better computers.
you should definitely become my Patreon or get on my Ko-Fi. But also, you can do various things to support 12 Valentines at 12valentines.net. But also, you can do something as simple as go to Bandcamp and buy a song or pre-order an album, and they let you pay as much as you want. So you can actually get a material thing immediately, and you could just overpay if you felt like supporting us in the logistical things like computer maintenance and gear and the studio time and all the things that we're having, all the things that contribute us to our songs coming out much more slowly than I wanted them to. But they are going to come out, and we're working on a really cool Birds of Prey-ish Suicide Squad disco song, and it's just going to kick ass.
Yeah, I saw the tease for that. I'm definitely colored me intrigued.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool, and we're gonna try to make it connect to the Suicide Squad video game discourse, which is also a big rolling hot mess of fire that hopefully will survive this year. Um, anyway, so yeah, working on that. Please, you know, please get involved in our 12 Valentines somehow. Follow us, crowdfund us, something like that.
Cool. So just well, before we wrap up, I want to take it back to the intersection of sports ball and nerd stuff.
Okay.
And I don't know if you pay attention to the NFL schedule release videos that all the teams do. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, because I feel like I'll get to podcast with you on Monday and you'll tell me about it. That's why
Oh, okay.
I don't have
Well,
to
so last week
personally
the
read
big
it.
deal was that all the NFL teams released their schedules for the upcoming season.
Yeah, okay.
But instead of just like here's the teams we're playing, every team now has some sort of, cheeky little video that they do to kind of announce all of their opponents. And last year, the Chicago Bears did a take on the show The Bear, and they had like
Uh,
all the players dressed up as characters from the show, and that's how they announced their opponents. Like
funny.
a couple teams did stuff like the Chargers had a great one where basically they were living in the Sims universe, the PC game, The
Yeah,
Sims.
yeah.
But they made Sims of all of the teams that they're playing, and like was basically just like taking the piss out of every team in the league.
Nice. The
Yeah, so like
Chargers did that? Oh,
the
okay.
Chargers
So,
did that, and like the funny thing is like they basically were making fun of Harrison Butker, the kicker who we were talking about at the beginning of the pod, because they showed him in like a kitchen baking and
nice.
being domestic and
Wow.
stuff.
That is
Yeah, like
cheeky.
they really like no holds barred. It was probably the best of all of the videos. I will say the Bears one was less interesting this year. They were doing a take on all the John Hughes movies, so it was like Ferris
Uh-huh.
Bueller, um, uh,
Because
Breakfast Club,
yeah, because
because they're
those
all set
movies
in
are
Chicago.
Chicago. So oh, okay, sorry. Thank.
Yeah, that's why. My favorite one though, aside from that one, was as much as I dislike the Patriots, they did a take on Goodwill Hunting,
Yeah,
where like
nice.
the creating the schedule was like he was like Matt Damon, Julian Edelman was like Matt Damon creating the schedule, and that
Uh-huh.
was really funny. I like when teams take advantage of like the city they're in and do some homage to like
Sure.
a pop cultural thing. Like the Jacksonville Jaguars were trying to capitalize on the X-Men 97 craze, and they did like an animated
Uh,
take on X-Men 97, but they were just like that was kind of dumb actually.
uh-huh.
And the one I didn't like was the Buffalo Bills did a take on Parks and Recreation, which is fine, I guess. But I don't know if you're familiar with the show, but Parks and Recreation is set in Indiana.
Okay.
So I don't know why you were the Buffalo Bills. You'd be doing like an Indiana set show, but
I don't
that's
know
maybe my
either.
nitpicking. So anyway, that's what just my nerd popping was the NFL schedule release videos.
I didn't even notice what the Niners did
I don't know.
because
Yeah, I don't know what the Niners did. I don't know if they did one.
hmm, I've yeah, because I don't have like a strong feeling about the sixth year because it's one of those years like we came so close and went so far, we'll probably fall back this coming year. It's like, are we gonna make the Super Bowl again? I don't know. It's a weird place to be. Um,
Yeah.
I'm sure
But with
you're
that, and,
yeah.
and other than 12 Valentine's, anything else nerd popping on your radar?
Well, I want to mention again the movie East Bay by the writer director Daniel Yoon. If it's in your circle anywhere, check it out. And we didn't talk for 1 minute about the finale of X-Men 97 because you haven't watched it, but it happened,
Yeah, tell me about it
and um, it.
real
I
quick.
mean, there's Sentinels all over the place,
Mhm.
and they fight the hell out of some Sentinels, and and yeah, I kind of stick by my initial review, which is like it's like a faithful adaptation of the best ideas from Claremont's run and all those artists.
That they
So,
could do when it was on like Fox Kids. I think that's the other maybe like appeal of this.
oh, maybe that's right. Maybe like they couldn't do like you mean some of the X-Men sort of like
More
gorier,
kind of adult
sexier things.
themes. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, even more to my point, those things which drew you to the X-Men comic originally, which was Claremont did some out there things,
that
pushing
you had
the
to tame for like the children audience who were watching it in 1996.
right.
Yeah.
Definitely pushed the limits of gore and violence because Wolverine was like stabbing and being stabbed like
Right.
every other panel. And there was some weird sex stuff, weird body horror stuff. And so that's why the X-Men comic was so great. And again, I'll just reiterate, the X-Men cartoon, the X-Men 97 is just the Claremont stuff done faithfully, and that's why it's awesome. If it didn't have that source material, it would be Captain Planet and no one would care. The stories, the images, the characters all have something that are tugging at you, and they're just faithfully represented from that long run of Marvel Comics. So read the comics, people. Gail Simone's new X-Men comic coming out this summer. We should all be interested in that.
Excellent.
All right.
No pun intended.
Yes.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Dominic, how can people find you and 12 Valentines on the internet?
Well, I'm Dama, DOMMAH on most of the socials, and you can also follow 12 Valentines on Instagram or 12valentines.net or various places like that.
You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealChow, _real_chow, and the Nerds of Color at the Nerds of Color on all platforms. Follow us at youtube.com for our videos, youtube.com/the Nerds of Color. Go to hardknockmedia.com to find this podcast, give us a rating and a review, and all the podcasts in the Hard Knock Network. I'm Keith. That's Dominic. This is Hard Knock Life. Thanks for listening. Till next time.
Thank you. Did the Ravens have an interesting video, or
Yeah, they had that comedian guy, Stavi, the
Okay.
the local comedian guy. I don't know why he's popular, but he's apparently very popular. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention: we're taking next week off. It's Memorial Day.
Right.
We'll go try to find some movies to watch Memorial Day weekend. We'll be back sometime in June, so have a good holiday, 3-day weekend, everybody, and we'll see you guys next week.
On your screen, hit play, so check this. This is the Hard Knock Life, but not the chicken kind, more like the people in